There's only one way that you can truly transform for good, and that is to move away from diet mentality into making this a lifestyle. Healthy living, healthy eating, working out, taking good care of yourself is part of your lifestyle. Ladies, welcome back to the Nicola Graham Podcast. This week, I want to go through the differences between being on a diet or getting your results from diet mentality versus this is just a lifestyle. And there are clear differences between the two. And if you want long-term sustainable results, which I know you've probably heard lots in January on social media, if you want sustainable results, I feel like I'm reeling off from like a cheesy Instagram ad even saying that strapline, but it's true. If you want that long term, we gradually build up. We get to the point where we've got emotional freedom around food. Scale weight is in a healthy place. You feel fit, you feel energized, you feel strong. Like if we're going to get to that position, then we've got to start looking at this as a lifestyle. And it truly is the only way that you will be able to sustain your results because it has become a way of living. I've had a good couple of conversations lately, and it's kind of sparked this podcast really, just with different women, like insights on the diets that they're following. I've started doing saunas, my little unfiltered anecdotes for the week. So goal of mine, I'm trying to up my health game just by, that 1, 2, 3% each month as I age. So I've gone back to doing my LED mask, the face masks. I got one for Mother's Day last year. I used it for, it might even been the year before. I used it for about 2 weeks consistently, and then I've barely used it since. And I've started this year, and you're like, okay, there are a few things here that I could reincorporate that support health, but also just support my well-being. So the LED mask is one, and sauna. Sauna use, ladies, I won't go into it, but have a Google. Sauna use in relation to overall health, longevity, recovery, performance, improving HRV, all of the good stuff. And I have access to a great sauna in my gym and I never use it. So anyway, that has changed this year. And I've been in twice a week. I know we're only a couple of weeks in, but, here's the thing. I'm enjoying it and I'm seeing the benefits from it. So, and it's the same with the lifestyle. You have got to put something in place for long enough that you start to feel the amazing benefits from it to the point where it becomes a no-brainer not to do it. I can already feel that, starting to take effect with the sauna. And I only go in for 10 minutes. The reason that I never used to use it is because of time. I go to the gym at 6 a.m. I've got to be home to tag team with the hubby. He leaves for work, I come in, sort the kids out. So I just always used the excuse that I didn't have time. And then I got to the point, I had a sauna over Christmas when obviously we did have time. And every time you do something, you think, why don't I do this more often? You go out on a night out and you don't drink as much alcohol, or you just have a couple of days of eating really well, whatever it is, insert the healthy habit for you. And you tell yourself afterwards, why don't I do this more? I feel amazing after doing that. Anyway, so I've had some good old conversations in the sauna. And I was speaking to a lady the other day, and this is going to feed into this podcast because it really got me thinking. And she was telling me that to accelerate her results for the first few months of the year, she was going to go back to this really popular diet scheme, let's call it. I'm not going to mention the name at first. I'm going to let you see if you can guess what I am talking about. Anyway, so she goes to this diet club, nutrition club, I think they call themselves, every week. And she has to weigh in on the scales. And while she's there, she has to buy the protein bars, which form part of her nutrition plan. She buys the special tea, which she has to drink of a morning. And she was explaining to me how that makes her feel. And I was like, oh, it sounds like it's a stimulant. And she was like, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not supposed to drink it with coffee. And I'm thinking in my head, so this special tea, this fat loss tea is a stimulant. It's probably like a fat burner tea. So bear in mind, she's going to this nutrition club every week to weigh herself. But at that, and she pays for this membership. And she's buying these teas and she's buying the protein powder and she's buying the bars and everything else. So I'm just chatting with her, no judgment whatsoever. I sincerely mean that. And so I'm chatting along with her. And she said, last time I done it, I really lost a lot of weight. But then, like, I went on holiday and the kids were off and stuff over summer, so I've put it all back on. So I just want to get back to that place where, and I was like, when you just think, do I go down an absolute rabbit hole here with you? Or do I just nod? So I was like, oh my gosh, it sounds like you're spending a fortune buying all of these products. I was like, do they endorse like real food? She was like, oh yeah, you can have a meal a day. You can have like your tea. You can have some protein, like a jacket potato or whatever, and some salad. So yeah, you definitely get to have real food. And when, honestly, my jaw, I was having to hold it up because I was thinking, this is shocking to me, is that this woman is clearly looking for help and support, but she feels so heavily reliant on these products, not food, products, to get her from A to B. And of course, there's complete restriction with these plans because you have to follow this certain protocol. And yes, I'm sure the protein bars and the shakes keep you feeling nice and satiated. So there we are, job done. But what happens the minute that you want to go on holiday and you don't want to take all your bars and your shakes with you? Or, you want to eat out with your family and you can't follow this like rigid plan. I was blown away at how she's going back for more. But it really made me think, oh my gosh, like how many women are in this position? And honestly, ladies, it's not just about getting our scale weight down. It's about living life to the full and being able to show up as our best selves. We always talk about our goals are, to show up for our kids or in work or for our partners, but for ourselves, like to make the most out of this amazing life that we've been given. This is what leading a healthy lifestyle will enable you to do. It will enable you to squeeze every drop out of life. Very dramatic. It may sound. Those of you who are listening, those of you who are clients of mine, who've been with me for long enough, who have gone through the transformation, who are now just like sky is the limit with the goals that you are setting yourselves, you will know exactly what I mean. Anyway, did you guess what it was? Drop me a message. I'm not even gonna name it on the podcast. Drop me a message on Instagram if you can guess what the famous nutrition club is that seems to have everybody hooked, following these very specific diet guidelines just to accelerate fat loss. So, okay, that was my little unfiltered. I also had this other really insightful conversation with a woman in the sauna who's following, I don't know, she's following someone on Instagram. She'd been telling me what she'd been doing in the gym. This is like, the way it generally goes is like, you're sitting in the sauna and I will either say, or someone will say, oh, have you just had a swim, or have you just done a class, or what have you been doing in the gym? And so this lady was like, oh, I've started doing the weights. I was doing classes, but I've struggled with weight for as long as I can remember, blah, blah, blah. Some women I'm pretty much the same, like an open book. And so she said she was working with this guy. I think he must have like a big following or something on social media. I'd never heard of him. And she's got to do 15,000 steps a day, and she's got to eat this certain way, and she's got to train this many times, and blah, blah, blah. And this was more like a group conversation, just when there's a few of us in there. But even just overhearing that, I'm like, oh, okay, there's so much misinformation, and there's so many big promises, there's so many bold promises being made to women, is what it is. It's not, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, Nick, it's easy for you to say you're in shape, like I'm not going to sugarcoat it, it's easier to stay in shape than it is to get in shape. The process to get in shape it's going to have tough moments. It's going to have moments where you feel a little bit lonely along the way. You are doubting yourself, you're doubting your consistency, you're doubting whether it works. It's part of the process. It's part of the mental element of fitness. This is why I'm so big on working on your mindset, working on your emotional habits and behaviours and your stress response. You've got to be able to have that mindset to get through the trenches and get out the other side, to get to the point where you're like, oh my gosh, okay, and now I've reached what felt impossible. And then it's easier to stay there. Of course it is, because you've done the hard work, and along the journey, and this is what I'm going to talk through now, along the journey, We build the habits, we build just that ability to make better decisions, and the emotional fitness and the mindset side of it, like, it comes with the process. You know that saying, like, enjoy the process. The process is, I don't know, is it like the process is the transformation or the process is the journey? I don't know. One of those sayings. But ultimately it's because you learn so much about yourself and all of the tools that you need to sustain the lifestyle in the process of transforming. So if you just go on a 6-week plan and someone tells you what to eat for 6 weeks, then okay, you might lose the weight, but you gain no knowledge of how to make it work for yourself, and you gain no awareness of your emotional dysregulation and reliance on foods and alcohol. And because you're able to commit for 6 weeks, motivation is high. It's a short period of time. We don't realize, but it is. It's a short period of time to commit to, and especially if it's a group coaching program, then maybe you're part of a group. You've got the other women around you motivating you, and it's like, yay, who can lose the most weight? But then you get there, and what happens? It feels really hard to sustain. And then you always feel as though you're on it or off it. And then you start to feel the weight come back on a little. So you try and claw back and go back to what you were doing on the 6-week plan, but it doesn't feel as easy now because motivation's waned a little bit. And so that's when the self-doubt with ourselves creep in. And I know this to be true because I've worked with many a client who has gone through this same cycle. And the biggest thing that they actually struggle with is self-doubt. And so then what happens is they put all of their worth on the scale weight, and they rely solely on the scale to validate their efforts. And so if the scale doesn't move, or it's not moving rapidly enough, then they're not good enough. They doubt everything because over time, nothing that they've done has ever stuck. And so it chips away at our self-worth and self-belief. But I'm here to change all of that. Inside of Thriving Women, ladies, I truly want to arm every woman who is willing with the tools to dominate mindset, emotional fitness, physical fitness. And even if you feel as though you are starting at ground zero and you've got 40 years behind you of dieting and poor relationship with food and you're drinking wine every weekend, listen, we cannot change what has happened in the last however many years. We can only decide to draw a line in the sand and move forward. And the reminder, it ain't going to be easy, but that's okay. It gets easier as the process goes on, but you've got to be willing to commit to the process. And that is, the mindset work as well as the physical and the nutrition and everything else. Okay, off on a tangent, Nick, as I like to do. Number one, so I'm going to go through differences between diet and a lifestyle. The number one for me is shifting from it feeling like an obligation to it becoming a choice. Now, hear me out on this because I talk about a diet with no restrictions quite a lot on social media. That does not mean that I have all of my clients doing the if it fits your macros, whereby you get given a calorie goal, and as long as you meet your protein, then you can do what you want with the rest of those calories. So you've got 2,000 calories to spend, you hit your protein target, and then you know what, you can just give me pizza and chips if you want. Like, as long as it's within your calories, that ain't going to work, because that is not going to leave you feeling satiated, potentially going to leave you craving with low energy and all the other stuff that we're trying to get rid of. As well as lose weight, we also want to improve performance, energy, cognitive function, relationship with food, everything else along the way. So, whilst I say no restrictions, the process that I actually go through with my clients is building autonomy, which means you choose. You choose what matters most. Now, for any of you who've not really done this work before, or maybe you haven't had the support of a coach, and it's not to say that you have to have the support of a coach, and this is why I'm doing the podcast, because obviously I want to give you the outlet, but those standards and those decisions, they are what we've got to keep bringing ourselves back to. So what do I want more? So I'll give you an example. We will forward plan a 30-day goal, 60-day, maybe a 90-day goal. Okay. In the next 30 days, maybe you've got one night out. But normally for you, every weekend, you drink alcohol just because it's just what you do. That's how you de-stress. It's part of the routine. It's the thing that you look forward to. Okay, but now we're gonna get excited about the goal of the next 30 days. And we know that we really want to enjoy this night out, but we also know that we want to be able to fit in workouts and drop weight on the scales and lower inflammation and improve the quality of your sleep. Okay, perfect. So let's assume I'm talking to you as a client. I will say to you, okay, in order to reach these goals, improve the energy, improve the sleep, lower the inflammation, reduce bloat, probably going to have to remove the alcohol from 2 out of the next 4 weekends. And you've got a night out, so one of them potentially is going to be a bit of a heavy night. So maybe we just look forward to that one night out and remove the alcohol for the 3 weekends, but it's a choice. We can remove 2, we can remove all 3. But that would be my recommendation. Okay, perfect. So ball is in your court. You can continue to drink every weekend if you want, but now you are aware of the fact that if I drink every weekend, I'm probably not going to get those goals I've just spoken about. So my actions don't line up with what I want the outcome to be. And this is the sticking point. This is the grey area that we miss, is that we underestimate what it takes to get to be where we want to be. And if you want to change and you want to accelerate and you want to undo a couple of years of bad habits, poor decision making, relying on junk food, whatever it might be, and for whatever reason, like I've spoken about this in previous podcasts, they need to be seen and everybody's got a backstory. And I truly believe that if you're in a position where you are struggling with weight, it's not your fault, but it is your responsibility now to do something about it, because nobody else can step in and make a change for you. And so the minute you get given a choice like that, then you are consciously aware of your decisions. And from my perspective as a coach, a lot of the time, we're just not made aware of the impact of our choices. So we are told on social media, it's calories in versus calories out. So we're tracking glasses of Prosecco at the weekend. As long as it fits our calories, it's all good. Unawares of the fact that it's massively disrupting sleep, cortisol, which knocks onto mood. Like when our mood is low, we're a bit sluggish, a bit hungover, we've had too much alcohol. Then we make the poor decisions around the alcohol, or we skip the workout. So it's this whole knock-on effect. Once you're made aware of that, and we've got no restrictions because you've still got your night out, somewhere in these next 4 weeks, you've got a really good night out to look forward to, that actually you're probably going to feel $1 million for because you've been doing all of this other work. That's how we get around no restrictions, because there are no restrictions. And if you choose to have a glass of wine on week 1 and it wasn't really part of the plan, but guess what? It happened. Me and the hubby ended up going out for dinner. We got a glass of wine. Okay, perfect. That's fine. In that moment, that was a choice that you made. And we understand now the work that we need to do and how we need to adapt to get around it. So it's always about feeling good with the decisions that you are making. And it's quite common actually to get into a routine of maybe making some decisions that you don't feel good about. And we've all been there, haven't we? Like you get the takeaway, or you overindulge, or you drink too much, or whatever it is. And the next day you sort of feel a bit remorseful for it. And for a lot of women, again, this will then lead to more self-sabotage, more negative self-talk, more bashing of ourselves. Versus if we can just continue to reflect on these decisions that don't line up for us, like this does not work for me. And again, your reflection can come in the form of a check-in with a coach, or maybe you're part of a group or a community, or you do some journaling or whatever it might be. But the more that you become aware of, okay, this does not align with my goals, where I want to get to, the energy that I want to have, the more that we can do that and reflect on it, the easier it becomes to make those better decisions. But it is a process. But moving away from feeling like it has to be an obligation. If you're on a diet, there will be a strict obligation to, like this lady in the sauna was saying, she has to do 15,000 steps a day. She has to do this, and this with her food. The other lady on this nutrition club plan, she has to start her day with this magic tea, which is a fat burner. Honestly, I know I'm repeating myself, but what the hell? How is this like slipping through the net? And there are women thinking that this is some magic tea and it's a fat burner dressed up in a tea bag, clearly. Anyway, it's an obligation. You must follow this protocol to get this desired outcome. That's it. It's not a choice. you're not living this healthy lifestyle, making these really great choices for yourself, walking around the supermarket. You must follow this plan. Now, I will caveat at this point, there will be some of you thinking, Nick, I don't know how to walk around the supermarket, make really good choices, because the food industry, as we know, we're bombarded with junk food disguised as healthy options. That's a whole other conversation. But again, if you're not already inside of Thriving Women community, come over and join us. Link is below in the show notes. It's in my bio on Instagram. Anywhere you see me, you'll see the link for Thriving Women. There's some starter information in there around whole food nutrition, and that's it. Essentially, that's what we want to base our diet upon. If you are going to be a thriving woman, then we have to follow the principles of whole food nutrition, but we want to be able to make those good decisions for ourselves. So number 2, difference between diet and a lifestyle. Kind of similar to number 1, we want to shift from feeling like we're following rigid rules to setting new standards and boundaries for ourselves. This is a big one, because if you see me on a night out and I'm drinking water, or you see me on holiday and I'm posting that I'm in the gym, or you see me at 6 p.m. and I really want to sit on the couch, but I'm going out to get a walk and get steps, this is just because I hold myself to a high standard, because I have got standards for myself, because I am more than, I'm working on becoming more than just a mum and a coach and a wife, and we all fall into that identity crisis at some point, don't we, where we lose ourselves a little bit. And so we lose our standards in that process, is what I believe happens. And I think every woman goes through this, whether you're a mum or a wife or not. We all at some point lose that sense of self on some level. And it's easy to let your standards slip in that moment, but it's really important that we get back to it. And we get back to, okay, if I am going to get back to feeling like the best, highest version of myself, I need to start setting some standards, because me eating chocolate at midnight and me drinking wine every night to self-soothe, and me vegging on the couch when I should be going to the gym, this is not the standard I want to hold myself to. I don't want to sit scrolling watching everybody else's fitness journey anymore and saving everyone else's recipes when I know for a fact I'm going to do bugger all with them and I'm still going to be crap at the weekend. Like, I want to hold myself to a higher standard. That's the difference. And again, it takes work. So initially we start the standards as just non-negotiables. So you might want to commit to 3 to 5 non-negotiables a day. And that's all you're going to anchor to. You're not going to try and do everything. You're not going to try and change everything overnight. Please don't. That will feel like an impossible standard to sustain. But you're going to set some non-negotiables. So this in itself sets a standard. Now, once you get really good at the non-negotiables, let's say, for example, one of the first ones that I set with any new client is just a water goal, a simple water goal, non-negotiable, must drink this amount of water a day. Over time, that becomes second nature. Like, you wonder how you ever survived without it. Okay, so we can now plug in a different, we can replace that non-negotiable with something that raises the bar even that little bit more. And so you get to play around with that. Start small, we build from there. And then the boundaries, it's the same principle. So I'll use alcohol as the example. You might want to say on a night out, I'm going to have 2 drinks max, or 3 drinks maximum, and I'm going to drink water in between, and I'm definitely going to stop drinking by 11 p.m. or whatever your typical night out time is. Okay, well that's boundaries. So it's not a rigid rule. It's not I must drink or not drink. It's I'm going to set myself a standard of this, and I'm going to create these boundaries, and maybe I'm going to put into the group before I go out to say that I'm not going to be drinking that much tonight, or I'm going to declare it on the first drink or whatever it is, and we create boundaries. And then the hard part, ladies, we've got to hold those boundaries. Again, some of you might be listening thinking, yeah, I say this, Nick, every time I go out, and then on my fourth bloody drink in, I'm realising that I'm unable to hold those standards. So whatever it might be for you, it might be around X amount of workouts a week, it might be around, having that cut-off point of an evening, with food, but we have to get clear on the standards that we want to set, start small, and creating these boundaries. And I'll be honest, a lot of the boundaries the boundary work that I do with my clients is really just around protecting your energy. Because you've heard me talk about this before, fat loss is an emotional problem. And so if our emotions are dysregulated and we're stressed, or our bandwidth is stretched, or we've reached our capacity, your ability to then make smart decisions goes out of the window. So we've got to look at what's going on there, because we want you to be able to make really good decisions for yourself, but your boundaries keep getting mowed down, and so you're leaving yourself in a vulnerable position. So we've got to get good at holding our boundaries, ladies. We don't even consider this to be part of the transformation, but it is, because it's having a massive knock-on effect to your stress levels, to the food that you're eating, to the quality of your sleep, to your energy, to your mood. And so I heard this saying, I don't know whether it was on a podcast or what it was, and it was like this psychologist, and he was saying, if we don't hold our own boundaries, no one else will. You can't expect someone else to respect your boundaries if you keep letting them slip. It's like saying, I'm going home at 10 p.m. tonight, but then the minute someone encourages you to stay out, you go, oh, go on then, just one more drink. And then the next drink, oh, go on, just one more. Okay, well, and then the next day we complain that our friends didn't respect the fact that we said we wanted to go home at 10. Well, you didn't respect the fact that you would set that boundary. You've got to set it. And that might be an elaborate one, but maybe it's a boundary in work. Like your work email goes off at a certain time, or you are going to set a boundary at lunchtime that you are leaving your desk, and the expectation might be that you stay at your desk in your work and you clear the inbox, but you've got to set a boundary, and then you've got to follow through with it. And it's going to feel uncomfortable, potentially, in some scenarios, like the workplace scenario. It will feel uncomfortable until it becomes a standard and a boundary that other people also then respect because you've stood by it. So that's it. That's a big difference between a diet and a lifestyle. When it comes to your food, it's standards and it's boundaries. The example I gave on this one, I think I may have given it on the podcast, or it might have been on a coaching video with clients. And I was saying I went swimming the other week. Apologies if I'm repeating this story. I went swimming the other week with my youngest daughter, and the plan was always like to go to the cafe afterwards. And I was thinking in my head, okay, I'll grab a protein bar or something. And then, it's not ideal. It's not the whole food nutrition, but it feels like a little bit of an indulgence to me. She wanted to go and get, a little sweet treat or whatever. Okay, that's fine, great. We get there and there was no options for me. There was only full-on chocolate bars, like a Twix or whatever, okay. Or, I don't know, like really crappy ready meals or something. So I'm standing there and I'm like, okay, well, that's me not getting anything then. Like it didn't even dawn on me. I got in the car afterwards and I thought, oh, okay, that's an example of a boundary. The way I've said, I'm constantly thinking of just ways to help and support. And I thought, that's a boundary that I don't even realise I hold for myself. Is that it wasn't even an option to get the Star Bar or to get the double decker or whatever, the Yorkie or whatever it was. Because in my head, the limit was the protein bar. And they didn't have any protein bars. So I'm not just going to completely, oh, go on then. I'll have like the crappy ready meal and the bar of chocolate. Like that's just not, it's not part of the conversation. There's certain boundaries set. So I'll get something from the cafe, but I'm not going to, there's certain things that I just won't have. It's just not part of my diet. And again, it takes work, ladies, to get to this point. It takes work to understand these better decisions, because I'm able now to forward think of like, how are you going to feel after you've eaten this? And I'm able to forward think to the point of where I might go, well, we're having a family meal tonight and we might have a little dessert afterwards. And so don't waste yourself now eating this. Like I'm able to apply that, and I know that not everybody can, but again, it comes with practice. And this is why MyFitnessPal is not a lifestyle solution. I'm all for MyFitnessPal in the interim period. So my clients, we do a mix of both, because I'm very aware, busy, high achieving women, mums, business owners, families, wives, we've got our own parents, we've got our friends, we've got houses to run. Like we can't be weighing every morsel of food on a weighing scale and putting it into MyFitnessPal until day dot, and that's the only way that we're going to stay in shape. Like, honestly, I know that there are plenty of people on the internet who would disagree with me. They probably don't have the 2.4 children and everything else. It's probably the bodybuilder or the fitness influencer who's like, in her 20s or whatever. And again, I'm not bashing any of that, because I also done that at that stage in life, but it's not a long-term solution. It's not a lifestyle approach. It does help us bring awareness to the food that you're putting into your body initially, of course it does, which is really important. But as a long-term solution, it's just not going to work, because again, it breeds more of this need for perfectionism and feeling like you're on it or you're off it. So I've got a client who I was working with not long ago, and it clearly when I started working with her, she just clearly presented as someone who is very all or nothing mindset, very like on it or off it. So we spoke about tracking calories, and we got into it. And in the first couple of check-ins, I noticed that every time she'd gone over calories, she'd gone over by a massive amount. So I said to her, like, what's going on these days? And she was like, oh, well, I normally just go over slightly. And then I just start then I'm like bartering at myself a little bit, because I feel bad because I've gone over on my calories. But then I end up just eating that little bit more of the food that I've just eaten, because it's kind of like, oh, I've just given myself permission now. And I was like, okay, so what is happening is you are feeling like that number is the upper limit of perfection. And if you can't meet perfection, then you might as well throw the towel in, which is completely irrational, because you might have gone over calories by 100. But now you think, oh, sod it, I might as well just go over by 1,000. Like, what's the difference? Either way, I've failed. Well, that's very different. 100 calories versus an extra 1,000 is wildly different. But in your mind, there's a very black and a very white option here. You either fail or you stay on plan. But that's not what we want to use MyFitnessPal for, ladies. And again, potentially a whole different conversation. MyFitnessPal is it's data collection. We're just using it to our advantage. Okay, we want to have awareness around how much protein we're actually getting, how much fibre we're actually getting, how many calories we're putting in total. And then we want to try and navigate to tighten up those numbers to align with our goals. But it's certainly not, we're not robots. I say this to all of my clients, and I'll pass it on to here. You might have a goal for each day. Let's say it's 1,800 calories, okay, 2,000 calories. That's the goal. It's not the be-all and end-all. There will be days when you'll feel like you need more, and there'll be days when you are satiated with less, and that's okay, because based on your training, based on your sleep, based on your menstrual cycle, like, the needs of the body differ on different days. So for women who really struggle to get control, yes, we have to put some boundaries in. So this is the boundary. And again, if you're working with a coach, well, if you're consistently going over, we need to look at what's going on. Is it genuine appetite? Is it stress response? Is it, like, we look at the type of food that you're eating. So if it's junk, hyperpalatable, processed type food, then this is why you're going over, because those type of foods are going to create cravings for more of the same, potentially going to drain your energy rather than giving you the energy. So there's all of those little nuanced grey areas. But MyFitnessPal, again, it's not a lifestyle solution, although I do agree that we potentially need to use it in the short term to get some real clarity. And then I just use it as a tool. So we just use it as a tool to sense check throughout. But what we really want is we want to get really good at eating for our needs and understanding this 80-20 with whole food nutrition. And this is another one why I feel that diets fail, because we struggle. We put ourselves through hell to get to the goal, whether it's keeping to the calorie deficit or following the black and white protocol or whatever it might be, instead of learning how to meet our emotional needs away from relying on food and alcohol, instead of going through that grim process, because we consider it to be grim, but instead of putting ourselves through that, we choose to go on the diet, we choose to go on this black and white plan, but it never gets us that long-term result. It's never going to change, ladies. If you've been in that same cycle for as long as you can remember, where you are on a plan or you're off a plan, that is never going to change, because plans are not designed to give you freedom. Plans are designed to have you tied into that plan, whatever it is. And so you're always going to be relying on that. And the minute that you come off that, you're none the wiser of how to cope and how to prioritize yourself. I've got to say, like, one of the big things that I've realized I do with a lot of my clients is I show them how to better prioritize themselves. That in itself has this massive knock-on effect to central nervous system, which again really helps to support emotional regulation, bring more joy and happiness into your life, which again might sound a little cheesy, but honestly, what are we waiting for? Like, what are we waiting for? We wait for the holiday or the weekend or the big occasion or the half term or whatever it might be to experience the joy. But my recommendations for my clients and what we will do on our check-ins on a weekly basis, we will figure out where we can make this part of a day-to-day or, weekends or whatever it is. It's got to be, because we've got to be meeting our emotional needs. We've got to be able to stay regulated. So guess what? We're not thinking about food 24/7. We don't need a wine to de-stress. I'm not stressed. Like, work is work. I'm able to detach from that now. It's not, my self-worth is not tied to my performance in work. So I don't need to come home and drink a bottle of wine to bring me back down. And then the following day, feel like crap because, oh, sugar, I was meant to be doing the whole fitness thing and, oh gosh, the scales are going to go up now. And then we just beat ourselves up. And what happens is we're just in this constant state of like mental overthinking, torturing ourselves. And subconsciously, I feel like it just teaches us that there's no room for error. Like if you're on a diet plan, it's teaching you that there's no room for error. And I would argue the case that again, you are going to make decisions that maybe don't align with the goal. You're going to eat the extra slice of pizza. You're going to stay up a little bit later than maybe your non-negotiable bedtime or whatever it is. But we get better at making better decisions over the course of time, not overnight. High standards, as you will hear me say often, is not perfectionism. Like if you are striving for perfection in everything, that's not the standard, ladies. That's an impossible standard. And I actually feel that it just leads to more procrastination, to be honest, because we get to this point, don't we, where if it can't be done perfectly, then we just don't do it. And it's like, oh, I'm procrastinating on the things that matter most to me because I perceive them not to be perfect. But really, I'm buying into a whole lie here because there is no such thing as perfect. There's just perfect for you. There's so many things that I could say as like off on a tangent about this, speaking about self-acceptance and self-worth and identity. We've just done an exercise this week. Well, I've done an exercise with clients around identity and just getting really clear on, where we're at now, where our energy goes, where our bandwidth is stretched, the things that we enjoy, blah, 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 all of these other questions. And then we looked at like previous self. So like, who were you before kids, before marriage, before work, before maybe 40s, before hormones? Like, what were the things that used to light you up, bring you joy? What were your goals, dreams, aspirations? And then we map out our future self. And in that moment, we can take the best part of both if we wish, current and past self. But then we've created a roadmap now for where we want to go. Like, we know clearly the woman who we are striving to become. It's us. It was us all along, but we're just defining now what that looks like at this season of life. And so making these better decisions feels easier because as long as the decision aligns with this future version of myself, then I'm good. Like, I know if the decision aligns or if it doesn't. Sometimes it's not going to align, that's okay. Just make sure the next decision brings you back on course. Like for me, going and getting drunk on a night out doesn't really align up with the direction I want to go in long term. But it might happen from time to time. That's okay. Just, it can't be a weekly thing. It just can't. The outcome, I'm never going to meet it. So we've just got to get clear, I think, on some level, the direction that we're going in, because that really helps to remove overwhelm and this need for urgency. This need for like, must have the result in the next week or 6 weeks or even like 6 months. It's like, just get clear on the direction that you're going in. And honestly, if you can identify that and identify with her, you will see progress in every area of your life and it will be satisfactory enough. And the more that you build momentum and the more that you start to feel good and you feel the good energy and you feel the benefits of your workout and you feel the benefits of eating well, and like the quicker the results will come, but the easier it'll be to sustain, because once you get to that point where you feel energized, you feel satiated, you're no longer relying on alcohol because we've created this emotional freedom. All of a sudden it's like, oh, okay, this is a lifestyle now. So I'm creating momentum. I'm progressing faster than I've ever done before. And it doesn't feel like work. It's bizarre. For a lot of women, they describe it as just feeling like almost like they can't believe it. You know, and you've probably seen me repost on socials when I'll get a comment from a client saying, I cannot believe the scales have gone down, Nick, and I've been doing this, that and the other, and it's like I'm living a life where I feel happy and free, and I'm eating loads, and I'm not doing anything wild, and I'm chucking out all my old clothes and I'm buying smaller dress size, and it's almost like the biggest aha moment. So there's no perfect right or wrong, but certainly if you're inside of Thriving Women, or if you aspire to be, or you listen to these podcasts and you're just implementing some of what I speak through, we just know what we're optimising for, ladies. We've just got to know what we're optimising for. We can't do both. We can't have, I keep referring back to the night out, but I think it's quite a common struggle, isn't it, around alcohol? It's the toughest one to break. Or maybe even like the Saturday night takeaway. Like, it can't be this crazy indulgent Indian with dessert every single Saturday if we're optimising for better health, because it's setting us back. So we've got to set the standard and create the scene and forward plan for what we want most. And again, once we pick up a bit of momentum and you get closer to where you want to be, that's where we can let in a bit more flexibility, because that's where it becomes a little bit easier, and you are now reflecting what you're doing 80% of the time. So when you let in these little 20%, it's not going to show up in your results. At first, if you've been 50-50 for the last couple of years, we need to get you to 80-20 before we can start getting too casual with flexibility. Like, you've got to put in the groundwork to build up the momentum. So we've got to adopt a no restrictions mindset. We need to have enough flexibility that we're not thinking about food all of the time. Again, if you're on a diet, you cannot eat chocolate, you can't eat carbs, or you can't eat bread or whatever. What's the chance that you're going to be thinking about bread 24/7? We can't have that. We've got to have enough flexibility that we're not overthinking the wine or whatever it is. But then we've got to have enough emotional stability that we don't need to rely on this flexibility on a daily basis. I'll break that down. I hope that makes sense. So we want to have the flexibility. We want to have choice. We want to have freedom, autonomy to make good decisions. But we need to have the emotional fitness, the emotional regulation. We need to do the work on that side, so that we're not relying on, oh, well, do you know what? I've got the flexibility, so I'm just gonna use my calories today on pizza, or I'll just use my calories on wine, or I've got to have an indulgence every single day. And Nick has told me that, like, it's no good to have restrictions. If you need an indulgence every day, honestly, like a crazy indulgence, likelihood is you're not going to get to that picture in your mind of like that top level standard higher self, because we shouldn't really need an indulgence from food every day. That's the reality of it. Sorry if that's busted anyone's, we get these unicorn ideologies, don't we, on Instagram, like no restrictions and you can do all of the things. Well, okay, yeah, we need to have flexibility, that's 100%, but we're also talking about optimizing for health here. That high standard that we want for ourselves, it's not a dress size, it's not a number on a scale, it's the healthiest, strongest, fittest, most confident, energized version of ourselves. It's having the energy to keep up with your kids, the confidence to walk in a room and be the first one to say hi, and to put the dress on that you feel fabulous in, and just to present in a way and to look in the mirror and think, do you know what? I'm proud of myself. I actually love the woman who's looking back at me. Like, that's health. That is not That's not a diet, it's not a dress size. And I would argue that to get to that level, you can't really be indulging wildly daily basis. So we want to have the flexibility to do it, but we shouldn't need to do it every day. And if we feel that we need to do it every day, then our emotional needs are not being met, or we need to get a better handle on our stress, or we need to look at our sleep, or we need to look at where we're dysregulated to the point that we are having to indulge daily. Does that make sense? So to wrap this up, your whole food nutrition works in a way that has you feeling satisfied and satiated. It'll help you reduce cravings. So this is not a diet, this is a way of living, ladies. This is a healthy approach, whole food nutrition. As I've said, if you want more detail on what this entails, what it looks like, what a typical food shop list would be, head over to Thriving Women community. If you can't find the resources that you need, drop me a message, drop me an email. You'll be able to find me on Instagram. Email for the podcast is also below. But get really clear on what whole food nutrition needs to look like. It will have you feeling more satisfied, more satiated, to the point where you're not craving as much anymore, because we're eating a whole food diet, have I just said? So we reduce cravings, we feel more energized, we're not carrying bloat, we are reducing inflammation. So inflammation can have this knock-on effect to all kinds of, whether it's brain fog or low energy or just feeling pretty rubbish in ourselves, to be honest, because it can show up as bloat. And let's be honest, when we get up, we get dressed of a morning, we feel bloated in our clothes, it's an instant no from me. I mean, it happens from time to time, but I'm like, if we can help to support, reduce it, then that's what we want to do. So the whole food diet is going to help to support this. But we want to think about eating better, not less. I can't stress this enough. We're still in January, ladies. You've still got time. I know it feels like a massive rush and a race to get all the weight off from Christmas and to get ahead. And I don't know who you're following on social media, but maybe you are seeing on social media everyone else's results, and they're all dropping the dress size and whatever it might. Stay in your own lane. I cannot say it enough. Continue to prioritise eating better, not less. Use the scale weight, use MyFitnessPal as data, as feedback, as information. If you're working with a coach, great, because you've got that support, you've got that accountability, you've got someone to sense check, you've got someone to speak to about your goals. Essentially, the majority of us women spend all day, every day talking about how we need to take care of everyone else. Very, very little of the time do we speak to anybody wholeheartedly about our goals. A coach will give you that. But we need to get focused on sticking to the plan of eating better, not less. And if you're not going in the direction that you want to go in, or you want to move at a quicker pace, then okay, let's manipulate what you're currently doing. Let's look at the water intake. Let's look at how many steps you're getting. Let's look at portion size. Let's look at, okay, can we maybe increase protein on that plate, reduce carbohydrates slightly, and maybe increase vegetables, so you're still getting the same amount of volume, but we've reduced the calorie load, or we've reduced the carb intake. Like, we can start to play around at that point, but the starting point is it's better, not less. And I said this to all of my clients in week 1 and week 2 of January. Don't stress about meeting a really low number of calories that we've just come off the back of all out indulgence over Christmas. Just get back to normal. Get back to normalising eating really well, and all of the chocolate and all of the other stuff goes on the back burner. Like, we just want to get back into normal eating habits and routines. Don't worry so much about the total number of calories, because when you're eating well, you naturally feel more satiated. So this food noise, it's reduced, it's heavily reduced, and the cravings and the energy and everything else is brought under control. And consistency, ladies, I will wrap the podcast up on this final note, but consistency, when we talk about this and the importance of it, it's really managing the bigger picture. It's not the next 48 hours, it's not even the next 72 hours, that matters. But I also want you to think about the bigger picture, the months ahead, the next quarter, the 6 months, even the 12 months ahead. Like, give yourself scope of, like, okay, if I make one bad decision, in the space of this next week, so I'm looking bigger picture, this is okay. I don't need to bash myself in this moment or self-sabotage even further. Actually, the best thing that I can do is just get back to normal, because my consistency when I look bigger picture has not been broken by this one poor decision. But what will happen is, if I continue to further sabotage because of this is where I'm going to let myself down. This is what always happens. This is where I let myself slip, is that like I'm just looking at a 24-hour period, and if I make a poor decision in 24 hours, I just hit the effort button, and then I choose to start again tomorrow. But that in itself is so inconsistent. And actually, I think it's just giving ourselves permission to just lower those standards, to be honest, and kick down those boundaries. And it's like, no, the mentality for us women from this day forward should be, I'm going to hold myself to a higher standard. And it's going to feel difficult, potentially, because I have give people the impression that I'm going to eat in a certain way, drink in a certain way, neglect myself in a certain way. I'm not going to go to the gym. I'm not going to leave the desk at lunchtime, whatever your scenario might be. But you get to choose different for yourself in this moment, but you've got to do it. You've got to choose different, and then you've got to stick with it. And when it feels really hard, you've still got to stick with it. And this is the other, I suppose, difference between the diet and the lifestyle and the on it or off it, is that we remove what we feel like from the situation. I mean, I don't always feel like cooking the high protein, veggie packed meal of an evening. It would be nice if I could just throw something in the oven. But reality, if I want to eat well and I want my kids to get a whole food meal, I've got to cook. This is the example of me. Last night, I didn't really want to prepare all of the chicken and marinate it and chop all of the peppers and everything. Grand scheme of things, it took 20 minutes. I was being lazy. I'd done it anyway. Because whether I feel like it or not, it matters to me. It's a big value of mine that my kids eat well. And there's a byproduct. Me and the hubs also eat well. And I've done this before I had kids, but I'm even more passionate now about making sure that it happens. And it's the same with your workouts. You know, we're not always going to feel like going to get the workout. So just promise yourself that you're going to go, whether you feel like it or whether you don't. But maybe you give yourself a little bit of flexibility. So we say, okay, if I really don't feel like going, I'm going to go and just do a bit of cardio. Or I'm going to go and I'm just going to do one set of everything. And then I'll see how I feel after one set. And if I feel like staying for a bit longer, I'll stay. And if I don't, I'll be happy with one set. So we give ourselves that little bit of flexibility, but it's never the option to miss. Obviously, unless you're feeling really poorly or you've had really crappy sleep or whatever. But 9 times out of 10, we've got to remove this emotional, I don't feel like it today, or I feel motivated or I don't feel motivated. We've got to remove that from, this is the plan, I'm just going to stick to it. Because when you're following a whole food diet originally, or initially I should say, it might feel challenging and you might feel like letting those standards drop. But we're going to get clear on non-negotiables. We're going to get clear on the identity of the woman that we are working towards. We're going to get clear on the standards that we want to set for ourselves. We're going to get clear on the boundaries that we want to set for ourselves. We're going to get clear on what whole food nutrition actually looks like. We're going to get clear on where we seem to be falling short. Where are we tripping up? Where do we find in ourselves stress or emotional eating or reaching burnout? We're going to get clear on all of that. And then we've just got to follow the plan that aligns with this better version of ourselves. And it's not black and white. It's not a 6-week shred. It's not a nutrition club. Don't forget to send me that message if you know what I'm talking about. It's a lifestyle. It is a lifestyle, and it gets better and better and better. And I can speak from experience. And the level of self-compassion and self-love and self-confidence on every level is tenfold to when I was relying on following diet plans. And I've been there. I've been there and followed all kinds of diet plans back in my late 20s and maybe even early 30s. And the freedom that I feel now on every level and the confidence I've got in myself is, I was going to say unshakable. That's probably too bold of a statement. I'm still working on it. But that all comes with following this lifestyle, because nothing beats that feeling of feeling like you're taking care of yourself. And that's what it comes down to. And that's where the shift on the scales and the drop in the dress size and everything else will come. And that's where you are no longer fixated on that number on the scales. Because if you know you're taking care of yourself and you truly know deep down that you feel great, that scale holds, it holds no weight over you. It's number, it's data. We can use it to our advantage. We can change what we're doing and we can manipulate the variables, but we're not going to allow ourselves to self-sabotage or beat ourselves up or negatively self-talk because of a number, because of a dress size, because we're taking care of ourselves and we feel so good about that. And so if this has resonated with you ladies and you're thinking, yes, this sounds really unachievable, but I want to see if I can do it. Well, I'm going to tell you now, it's got to start with some level of self-belief. You've got to believe that you can. Like, I want you to tell yourself, I can do this. I can do hard things. I can get out the other side. Expect it to feel challenging. Anything's going to feel challenging. Sitting on the couch feeling overweight feels challenging. Getting out for the walk's going to feel challenging. Just choose what challenge you want to meet head on. Know that one comes with much greater reward. And then commit. And if you need help, support, accountability, bit of camaraderie, some structure or a plan along the way, come and join us inside of Thriving Women. If there's any way that I can support you, whether it's with group coaching or free resources or whatever it might be, give me a shout, drop me a DM, come and join us inside of the community. And I will look forward to it. I'll look forward to hearing from you all. And I will catch you all on the next episode, which is an exciting one. I've got a guest on next week's episode, ladies. Really exciting guest. I will look forward to joining you all on next week's episode of the Nicola Graham Podcast.